Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Today, I wanted to do a little playing around. I've received quite a bit of this synthetic leather, and a lot of it actually from a company called Great Carve. I've used their scratch acrylic in some projects before. They have a similar product. It's much like leatherette and others. It's the two-tone. You'll have kind of your top color, and then you can engrave that away, and it reveals a secondary color. And then, of course, you can cut it out, and it is manufactured to be laser safe and specifically for lasers to work on. So their product actually has like this, I don't know if you can see it, it's kind of a fabric backer to it. And I've been trying to figure out, okay, so how do I use this? Well, I did a little bit of looking, came across a thermally activated glue that I think should be able to work to, you know, use this to maybe adhere back on itself or even maybe possibly on hats and such. So thought I'd play around with the idea of trying to make some keychains with this. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. We're going to be working with the xTool S1, the 40 watt. So I'll kind of share some of my settings and such for this if it works out, and see what we end up with at the end. If that's something you're interested in, want to check it out, stay tuned. I'm going to jump right into it. So I've done a number of material tests on some scrap of color. I don't use a whole lot, but the settings should be fairly similar. Now, some colors may have a little bit of variation with the diodes, but what I came up with on this kind of seafoam green piece for our engraving, I'm going to be up around 400 millimeters a second for the speed, and kind of want to hit between these two, so 20 and 30. So we're going to be going about 25% power for our engrave on these. And then I noticed there's a little bit of lines in here. This test was run at 100 lines per centimeter, so I'm going to bump that up to about 120 just to kind of close those lines. But everything else looks crisp, and up in this range we don't get a lot of extra kind of vaporization and overburn that we need to clean up later. So then for the cut, I went ahead and ran a test, and you see these are all cut out. I had ran it from 50 to 90 and speed on millimeters per second, and the 40 to 90% power, which both were gross overkill. So I did run a few more tests and ended up that we're going to be using the cut settings at about 30% power and 300 millimeters a second on the cut. So with that in hand, we're going to jump into XCS, and I'm going to draw up some keychain patterns that we can then go ahead and test with this material. Here we are in XCS, and I've gone ahead and created a few different patterns for our leather keychains. And you maybe notice on top this larger one, as I was doing this, I was thinking, hey, you know what, we could possibly make a bookmark as well. So just a few examples that we're going to play around with. We've got kind of your typical round one. This circle is roughly about 1.75 inches. And then we will put the glue up to kind of around the circle, but leave this loop part free. We'll slide a keychain on there before we glue it together. Then thought we'd play around a few different designs. Of course, my friend David over the Clack Shack, he loves his honeycomb patterns and such. So I did a similar pattern with that, and I have some orange material. So we'll see if we can make that work out for him. And then more of kind of this straight type of keychain here. And you know, I like my NASA stuff, so I thought we'd throw that logo on there. And then the college I work at, we have kind of this diamond pattern in the logo, so I thought I'd go ahead and play around seeing how this kind of comes out. Can throw some of my work keychains, wear my work keys on there or something. So of course, as mentioned from our material tests, we have them set up there, so all of the cut processes are going to be at 30% and 300 millimeters a second, and then our engravings 400 millimeters a second and 25% power. So I'm going to be doing these on a variety of different colors to see if our settings work on that stuff. And then I also do have some traditional leatherette. It's a little bit thicker. We've got both the adhesive back as well as the not adhesive back. I may cut a couple of those as well to just see how it compares to this stuff we have from Great Carve. So that's the file I've got set up. We'll go ahead and get these running on the xTool S1 with those settings, see how everything comes out, and then see if we can get these glued together and working as keychains. So let's hop back into the shop. So we have to start out by using the framing function with the S1, and then we can get on to running our first ones. We're doing the black with my Vintaris Workshop logo,
And the engrave and the cut worked pretty well, and as you'll see here in just a second, they came out fairly clean, just a couple spots that stuck. So at this point I started backing off my cut speeds just a little bit, but it's a little bit of a trial and error with each color. So with that success, we moved on to the orange honeycomb, going ahead and engraving the Clack Shack logo on these. These are some keychains I actually brought to him for Workbench Con. And as you can see, those came out pretty well as the first set. So going ahead and moving on to the blue with the gold underlayment, and this is getting the college logo on there. We're going to go ahead and engrave that, and then also jumping over to some white material, which has that silver underlayment, and getting that NASA logo in there and cutting that out as well. Then last but not least, we're going to go ahead and get that bookmark engraved. This is on that kind of white marble color material. The engraving went well, and then 2 passes made sure that cut came through.
Everything did seem to cut out fairly well. I ended up backing off the cut speed a little bit, as I just noticed on the larger objects. We were again running in some areas where it wasn't cutting very well. So I would probably dial the settings back for most of the darker colors to maybe about half that speed, 150 millimeters a second. Bump the power up to maybe like 35, 40, and possibly even add a second pass. Just make sure you get those nice clean edges. I also have some of this real thin kind of tag board material. I cut out some reduced pieces that are gonna be possible backers into these keychains, and that's why I cut out 2 of each. Just concerned that this is gonna be too flexible on its own with the glue layer in there. Maybe it'll stiffen up a bit, but I wanted to find something that had some rigidity to it, but not too thick that it makes it difficult to glue these together and get them lined up. So we'll see if this works as well. So hopping over to the workbench, we'll bring you in there, show you how we're gonna get these all sealed up. All right, so I've got them all laid out here, and these are the tools we're gonna be using. The glue that I've found is this Aleene's InstaFuse Fabric Fusion. It's thermo activated, and this is really meant for a lot of fabric joining, so I'm hoping that's what's going to work well here. And you basically just need to kind of put your glue on at least one surface, and then you need to heat it up. They're saying use a cotton or an iron on cotton setting. That's pretty hot. I've got this little xTool kind of a miniature iron. It's got 3 settings, or you can use their Bluetooth module to dial in the temperature. So we're gonna try this on the medium setting. I'll try to get a temperature reading of that when we're on there. We'll see how that works. So like I said, we've got these discs or cutouts that I'm also gonna try on one of each of these, just to see if that maybe stiffens up the keychain a little bit, because I am concerned that these are gonna be too flexible without it. But we'll try one with and one without, see how it works. But first, I'm going to see if I can get this NASA one cleaned up. And there's just a little bit of, I'm seeing just a little bit on these orange ones. So we're going to try to get these edges cleaned up and go from there.
So I'm using a microfiber cloth and just a little LA Awesome. It's a light degreaser, and that should take any of that vaporization off the edges. Just need to kind of gently rub that away. And we've got our xTool mini heat press. I've got it warmed up at the medium setting. We're just above 300 degrees. Might be a little bit warm for this leather, but we'll see that it's hopefully in that target range for this glue. So we've got that fabric backing. We're going to slide one of the keychains on there, kind of get that halfway. And then I'm just going to start applying some of this glue. I'm going to want to get it well into one side. I want to get a nice even coat, but want to be careful not to get too much on there, so that it's a balance of fully coated, but we don't want to get a lot of squeeze out. So just kind of working it into the fibers and getting it all around where I want it to seal, but we want to make sure we leave that gap in the middle where the key ring is going to slide through. So once that's done, we're going to be careful not to get the key ring in there, but we're going to fold it in half, get it all lined up nicely, just double checking that the alignment's okay. Then we want to use some Teflon paper just to protect the leather, and you want to keep the iron moving as you go over it. I went for about 20 to 30 seconds per side, flipped it over, made sure to apply heat from the opposite side as well, just to try to make sure that everything gets fully cured, but just keep that moving. And as you see, it came out pretty well. We'll let that fully dry and cool down and see how it looks when it's done. We're going to go ahead and jump to the second one. This one, we're going to put that little tag board spacer in there. So pretty much just rinse and repeat add the glue. Then we're going to take that little disc and drop it on there in the center, get it kind of nice and aligned well. Then we're going to go ahead and come back with a little more glue and get that fully coated so that we can make sure that it soaks into the material both sides. But again, we don't want any squeeze out. I forgot to put this on earlier, so we're going to go ahead and slide that on the dry side, being careful not to get any glue on anything that we don't want it stuck to. Once again, lining it up and then using the Teflon sheet once again to protect the leather, going ahead and applying our heat with that spacer in there. I just want to try to make sure you get the edges really well. Of course, I did both sides again, and then at the end here you see it also came out very well, but we'll have to let it dry before we test its strength.
All right, it is actually a couple weeks later. I'm back from Workbench Con. I did give David his keychains, so I can't show you those, but they did come out well. However, I do have a lot of the others that I made. I did do some playing around on a few different things with these, but they came out fairly well, both kinds. So the ones with the tag board in them, so that's going to be on this side. Versus without, they are a little more rigid. It's easier to flex this one. You see that bends a little bit, whereas this one, it just holds its rigidity just a little bit more. Now, over time, that might wear out as it's out of your pockets and such, but it does add a little bit of rigidity. So it's something to consider if you want to play around with this idea. The glue, now that it's cured, actually adds some rigidity on its own. So fresh off the iron, that kind of starts it to set up, but it takes a good 24 hours before it's fully cured and kind of solidifies. So that in and of itself is going to add some rigidity, but it works really well. I had one of these on my backpack at Workbench Con as well on a zipper. It hasn't worked loose, so of course this is only a couple weeks later. Time would tell about the longevity of it, but something to play around with. Now I also used some kind of standard leatherette that doesn't have that fabric backing, but just kind of the leather backing. It worked out okay, but you got to be careful. The glue doesn't soak into it very much, so you want to get a real fine layer on there. And I found that it had a little more tendency to slide around. So even though I got it lined up, you can kind of see just a little bit of edge there. I got some squeeze out, and so alignment is a little more critical there. Now I had one other one that I tried with the typical adhesive back leatherette. You do need to be careful not to remove the adhesive from where the keyring goes. Again, that's an option. You wouldn't have to use this glue then. You would just kind of fold it over on itself, get it lined up. But since it's pre-adhesive, it's kind of a one-shot deal. And then the heat helps set that. So definitely something you could try with these kind of synthetic leathers on these keychains and have some fun playing around with it. I was pretty impressed that the xTool S1, even though it's a blue diode, was able to work with this white tag as well, both engraving and cutting it. And so that one came out fairly well. Of course, here's our navy blue with the gold on that one. I do feel like I could have increased my line interval on the engraving just a little bit, just to make that gold a little more brilliant. I don't know if you can see it there, but it's just got a little bit of blue shining through, so I think just a little tighter line interval would help. And then of course, would work well for the bookmark idea too. Now this is just that fabric stuff doubled over with the glue, so it does still have some flexibility, but it's stuck together. And if you had some of that nice ribbon material in here, it would make a nice bookmark for someone, and you can maybe personalize it on the back. So this is where I think I'll wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments for me about the project or any of the items used or the machines used, I will have links down below to as many of them as possible. You know, the xTool machines and such, I'll have links down below. I'll have some Amazon links for some of the things like the glue and keyrings and such. Some of those will be affiliate links. Many of them will give me a little bit of a kickback, so I appreciate you using those. But as always, just happy to pass on some information and try to inspire you for a project that hopefully you can play with. So if you have any
questions, comments, ideas about this, go ahead and leave them down below. Love the interaction with people. Love hearing from you on what you thought of the project or how you might use it. Always great to hear from you. If you liked the video, hit that thumbs up. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. I do a lot of project videos. I do equipment reviews. And on Sunday nights, I do a live stream with my friend David over at the Clack Shack. We talk about lasers. We talk about CNC machines, 3D printers. Mostly, we answer your questions. So if you have a question about your laser, maybe your CNC or 3D printer, hop on there 7 p.m. Central Time on Sunday nights. We're there for a couple hours to hang out and hopefully help you learn a little bit more about your equipment and inspire you as well. So again, so we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. But most importantly, I hope you get out in your workshop and make something too. We'll catch you next time.